Hello and welcome to Network Africa. I am Adeshewa Josh. Democratic elections in Africa has been characteristically described as evolving. The past 15 years saw a wave of protest emerged in Africa, reflecting the global fervor for democratic, accountable leadership and representative political systems. In the early 80s, many autocratic regimes in Africa caved in to the combined pressure for reform of both their citizens and the international community as they introduced periodic elections for parliament or the president. This often went hand in hand with the formation of new opposition parties. At least 10 African countries have either gone to the polls or are about to this year to either elect a new president, keep the current one, or elect members of parliament. Burundi, Ethiopia, Sudan, Togo, and Nigeria are but a few of these countries. And while Nigeria has had widely acceptable, credible elections, many African countries are still learning the ropes of democratic elections. Dr. Victor Chalet is the principal consultant, Shale Stone Elections and Governance. He joins me now on Network Africa. Well, thank you so much for making out time to speak to us on the program. You have been an election observer during many elections in Africa, including the Tanzanian polls coming up on Sunday. First, let me ask you your thoughts about the electoral process in the continent for the past 15 years.
Thank you very much and good afternoon. One can safely say that elections in Africa are a mixed bag. In that, generally, I can, argue that if you look across the continent, there are countries where elections have definitely been assets, but there are countries where elections have been liabilities. And I would like to basically depart on that point, in this discussion this afternoon, to say that generally there are countries that have really made significant milestones in entrenching, electoral processes as a democratic process, but there are countries that are still lagging behind, as you would have seen in recent past, where you still have instances of military coups and so forth.
Oh, you will agree with me that elections are a necessary and even pivotal part of any succeeding democratic government. Though some have argued it's not enough to sustain it. What does the current African electoral process say about its democratic institutions?
Indeed, if you look some years back, there was a false assumption that holding elections tantamounts to having a democracy. And that is what we call, the fallacy of electoralism. What you have is that there have been, I think, very good attempts by both the African Union and, of course, the regional bodies like ECOWAS, SADC, and Community of East African States, where they have adopted norms and standards that are used to measure the extent to which elections are able to bolster democratic efforts. And I think it is those that we definitely look at, looking at individual countries in the continent when they conduct elections. So yes, there is never enough resources to perfect the game, but at least those norms and standards help us as a guiding tool to see where the gaps are as we assess the different countries.
So let's compare the past with the present and hopefully predict the future. Where we are right now concerning elections in Africa, how well are we doing?
Like I said, it's a mixed bag. I mean, there are countries that are hopelessly behind and that are not yet politically ready to basically embrace the norms that I was talking about. But there are countries that are really, exemplary. I mean, take the example of Nigeria, for instance. Nigeria's recent elections have been hailed across the continent as peaceful, as a very smooth transition of power from one regime to the other. That is something that we need to see happen across the continent. You see, for instance, elections that are taking place in Egypt now, where you find that there are still lots of questions in terms of the openness of the process. So we are saying, yes, countries like Egypt, elections are guaranteed, but every aspect of this election is very much clandestine. And so we cannot really say those are, credible elections. Right from the start, you have seen what happened in Burundi recently. I mean, so it's really a mixed bag. It depends on country by country, but there are definitely countries, in a significant number of those countries, where, as I was saying, elections are proven to be an asset.
Okay, so we cannot talk about the credibility of an election or the electoral process in the country without talking about the role the electorates play. What is the progress report about the electorate in the continent? How inclusive, how educated have they become about the issues that affect them? Of course, these are the things that will inform who and why they select their candidates.
Absolutely. You're talking about progress made in the continent, as you rightly put it, really cannot, be complete without looking at the electorate. In fact, I was looking at the headline slips on your program when you started, that there is an update on the ongoing student protests here in Johannesburg. And that shows the extent to which people are now becoming aware of their rights and demanding of the leadership to actually deliver on the promises they made on the elections. Because if you look at our students right here in South Africa, they are basically saying we are sick and tired. From 1994, our leaders in every election campaign, they are promising us free education. But instead of making education free, they are actually now adding fees. And if you go to most of the countries, you can take Kenya, you can take Mozambique, you can take Namibia, the electorate are demanding accountability from the leadership. And it is that level of sensitization that really contributes to the electoral processes also improving. Because gone are the days where people would just organize elections, no observation, no citizen participation, basically politicians competing against themselves. Because there would be no other stakeholder involved in that process. But those days are gone. People are, increasingly demanding, accountability, and that is one of the, I think, good improvements in African politics and, of course, electoral processes.
Right. So there's this question. It could go both ways, but I'll try and make it as simple as possible. What are the major deciding factors for an average African electorate? We know we want a better life, we want poverty reduction, but I mean, what should an electorate be looking at? And I'll give you an example. A lot of people have said some elections around Africa is dependent on whether or not a politician can dole out money or food, and then as soon as the election's about to take place, they swing their vote the other way, because they're able to receive this potential, should I say, these little gifts before, little gifts before the elections come. What should be the real deciding factor for an average African electorate?
The deciding factor has to be delivery. Delivery of better lives for our people, delivery of the services, delivery or responsiveness of the African governments or African leaders to the needs and aspirations of our people. One of the challenges that Africa still faces at large is the fact that during election campaigns, as you would have seen in many countries, you still have politicians who think they can take money from the rich and take votes from the poor and promise both that they will look up, after their interests. We know that it is a fallacy. So one of the challenges that Africa is grappling with now is basically also the role of money, the role of big business in electoral processes, because often you find that the more these people are able to pump into millions of nairas or rands or dollars into the party coffers, the more control they have over the electoral process. And that is something that all of us have to confront, and until that is confronted, we are always going to have the needs and aspirations of our people being compromised. But of course, as I said, delivery of service, responsiveness to the needs and aspirations of the people is actually what will basically complete the electoral processes and make them more relevant to our people.
Thank you so much. Dr. Victor Chalet is the principal consultant, Shale Stone Elections and Governors. He joined us from South Africa. Thank you. Now let's quickly take you through the election timetable for African nations in 2015, those that have had and those that are still going to have their elections this year. Let's start with Togo. It's going to come on your screen now. Togo Republic, April the 25th, 2015. Nigeria, March and of course April 2015. Tanzania, 25th of October. That will be this Sunday, and we'll keep a very close eye on that elections. Egypt, first stage will be 18th and 19th of October. Second stage will be 22nd and 23rd of November. In Sudan, it was 13th to 16th April 2015. Burundi, 21st of July. Burkina Faso, 29th of November. Côte d'Ivoire, 25th of October, so we have two elections coming up on Sunday in Africa. Ethiopia, 24th of May, Central African Republic, October the 18th. Guinea was on October 11th.